Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
PremierBilliards.com. Exceptional cues, cases, and accessories from top-tier brands. Want it? Need it? Find it. PremierBilliards.com.
What is up, everybody? Good evening. Hopefully you guys had a happy Easter. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me all right. Riding solo tonight. Oh, well, besides the guests that we got coming in. Anyhow, it's been a great weekend. Hopefully y'all's was just as eventful as mine was. It was a lot of time with family, a lot of sports, a lot of memories, a lot of smiles, and it's always like that with Easter. So me and the girls had a really solid time, and lots of cracking of eggs, barbecue, normal Texas stuff. Thankfully, the weather was great, and lots to jump into though this evening. Jeremy Jones is waiting in the back, and I'm going to bring him on in shortly. And I'm real excited to have him on because he's always just really open and honest. And with all the news coming out over the last week, I wanted to get his opinion on it, and like the professional that he always is, willing to come on. And I'll tell you guys a great story of how great that he is. And I'm not trying to like toot his horn or anything before we bring him on, but so usually like after guys win, I'll interview them. But after losses, I tend to like leave players alone. I give them their space. I try to just, you know what I mean, like just let them do their thing. And Double J, to his credit, I remember like post Moscone Cup, I can't remember if it was this year or the year prior, hits me up like maybe a day or two after the event, and he was like, "Hey, you want me to come on?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course. I'm glad you asked instead of me." And that's just the kind of guy that he is. He's been a friend of the show and a friend of mine, and I'm bringing him on. So let's go ahead and have him jump on in out of Houston right now. Double J, is that where you're at right
No,
now?
I'm in Denton. I'm at home.
Home's in North
Yeah, yeah.
Texas. Yeah, home's
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
spent
from
a
Houston.
summer.
I'm
I've
from
spent a
Houston.
summer in Denton. I
Oh,
remember
summer, huh?
I spent like a summer when I was 19 in Denton. It was a college town. There was some
Oh, yeah.
lots of quite questionable decisions back then. When I was 19 years old, hanging out in a college town during a summer vacation. So, but it was a good time.
Denton's a cool town. They kind of label it as a mini Austin, kind of like a lot of music.
I
Big,
could see that. Yeah.
yeah, two big universities plus a decent sized junior college also. So
What was the weekend like? Because it's holidays, it's sports, and I know all those things, family, all those things are important in your life. So what was the day like for you?
today, actually, we commuted back from Shreveport. Um, Me and my wife, we went and saw Kevin Hart last night. I told you I had a date night on Saturday. It was kind of something we
Nice.
looked at. Yeah, something we looked at a few months ago, and then of course Rob is always cool, and so we drove over yesterday. Lucky to make the show. Believe it or not, it was kind of funny. Sometimes got confused, but we had a great time, and then came back today, and then saw the kids, and they went and did their Easter thing, and it was good.
I made that drive from Dallas to Shreveport one time to go to a side pocket open, and I don't remember it being too bad. I want to say it was like around 4 hours, somewhere around there. Is that right?
I think Dallas, it's only like 3. I live north in Denton, so it's about 4 probably total.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what
somewhere
you hit,
somewhere around there.
traffic or no traffic. So,
It's brutal up there. That's why I love visiting. I don't like staying. But what was the comedy show like, man? Because Kevin Hart, man, must have been pretty good.
oh, really good. It was at a smaller theater. Like I went and saw him in Philly last year, or actually about a year and a half ago, on one of the big tour shows. Actually, he's from
Yeah.
Philly, so it was a hometown show. That was at the 76ers arena, whatever that is, 25,000 people or whatever. But this one was much smaller. Um, I thought it was really cool. We had great seats. He had, 4 guys ahead of him, I think it was, and then he had all new materials, brother told me, so it was really good to see, and, and his brother tells me about it a lot here and there, and that's a busy guy. We think we're busy, but that's a
Is
really busy guy, that Kevin Hart. So,
the go like is that the one where you're calling in the favor? Because if you're like me, I don't like bothering people for favors too much, But like something like that, are you calling in the favor? Hey, I need some good seats. You're not. I'm sure you're not nitty. You're willing to pay, but are you calling in the favor for the good location there?
yeah, and it was more for my wife. As far as whatever he got us was fine. No, we were right, like really close. It was really good, but it was a funny story. Year and a half ago, 2 US Opens ago, Rob, to make it short, he hit me up about coming up and sparring with him for a few days before the US Open, and then we were right over because he's in Philly, only an hour and 10 minutes away from AC. So my wife and we wanted to go see Kevin for a while, and it just never worked out. He had been through the last 7, 8 years, and I've known Rob for a while, and Rob always told me, anytime, let me
Yeah.
know if we can help you out, I will. And that last, like a week before I was supposed to go to spar with him, he's like, "Oh man, I forgot to tell you." He said, "My brother's got a show here this Friday while you're in town, hometown show." He's like, "I hope you don't mind going." And I'm like,
You're
"Man,
like twist my arm.
right, right." But I immediately think, man, you gonna put me in a spot with my wife now, because she ain't getting to go,
Doghouse for
Well,
sure. Doghouse.
but in a funny manner. So it was like
Yeah.
I didn't for some reason tell her right away that night, but then the next day we're talking, me and Rob on the phone. I got him on speaker, and my wife comes out, and I say, "Hey, Rob, say hi to Amy," because he's never met my wife actually, even though they talked on the phone several times. And Rob, being Rob, goes right in to, "Yeah, did you tell her we planned this all around that concert on Friday?" Trying to get me into
Just trying to
a
throw
little more.
us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was real good that it didn't take 10 years to get my wife to one of his shows after that. So, but it was good stuff.
The more personal ones where it's a smaller theater are usually the better quality ones anyway. So I'm sure that more than made up for it. That's pretty awesome, man. I like that. I like that. I've never seen Kevin
Yeah,
person
yeah.
at a show. I've always been a fan, just watching his humor and comedy and videos and stand up, of course, Netflix. And I don't watch a whole lot of TV or stuff like that, but I can enjoy a good comedy show, man.
Oh yeah, and all his opening guys, most were the same. I think they were in Philly, but it's good to see two different kinds of totally different shows. You know what I mean? Like one is his hometown with
Yeah.
25,000 people, big arena, and then one's real quaint in a small place. That's he made very comfortable.
That's pretty awesome, man. Yeah, I think I got plans to go back to Shreveport for that ultimate pool. I don't know if you heard about that. That's coming up out there at some casino. I went to Sam's. I think was a casino I stayed at that one time, but I didn't get to travel a whole lot. It wasn't the best, location where I was at, if I remember correctly. But I'm excited to go back if I can make it out there in a few weeks. So um,
Yeah,
let's
Shreveport closure. It seems like it's
Yeah, for sure, no doubt, no doubt. And it's funny because you travel more than me, man. But you get all over, and I'm sure you're glad to be home. But let's talk about the last few weeks, Double J, because there's been a lot of stuff going on. Let's let's start with SVB doing SVB things, but different time, different place, different venue. Give me your take on where his game's at right now and what you witnessed out there at Jason's room.
well. I mean, everything he's been doing, has come to fruition here the last several weeks with what he did in Vegas and then the PLP. But I always saw when Shane gets on that roll, he wants to keep on that roll, and he kind of creates his own role by putting in so much time, and I think he analyzes certain things better than he used to. Meaning when practicing, like there's a little more, let's say, total direction. I think when he practices more now, which I think keeps him engaged practicing very well also. But I think his game
Give me
is
an example.
incredible.
Like, is it like trying to solve a riddle of the table of the break? Is it, maybe a shot that's eluding them? Like, what is it about that you pick up on?
Well, I kind of watch it during matches. It's almost like if you ever watch Shane after a match, win or lose, a lot of times, just if you watch the whole match, certain things stick out in his head, and then he'll go set up a shot right afterwards. That was
Right.
whether he didn't like the way it reacted. I don't know how much he gets into how he hit the ball occasionally, but I think he just wants to hit it better, whatever it is, and I think a lot of simple things grab Shane's attention, which is very common for the elite in sports. So,
I agree with you, and I've been witness to it many times. And it's whether he wins or he loses. It's like, why the hell did that not do what it's supposed to do, or why didn't I, make it happen the way that in my head it was supposed to be executed? And he'll set it up, and even if he doesn't get it within those first, let's say, 3 or 4 times after the match, he'll go on a side table and just set it up again, because it's like he he's the ultimate competitor. And there's a lot of guys that are, and it's not like if it's a dog shot, it's just like, man, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do, and he's just relentless, man. And when he's like that, you just there's no let off in the guy. He's wired a little differently.
yeah, and I think his mental game gets stronger in a way, um, to where he'll just, like I said, take one shot and just pick it apart for one reason or another. And plus, I think he gets to a situation where he's really just testing himself. He's just out there really competing with himself, which is again ideal, but easier said than done. And what I'm saying is he's willing to take on all the tough shots. So it's almost like
Yeah.
he wants to make them all. I mean, he wants to have a higher percentage. So it's like the sacrifice is well worth it for what he's trying to do.
Is that what you think got him across the finish line there with 16 of the best players on earth?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, he got the ball rolling. I mean, I think it was good that he probably had a few losses there. What was the day? Whatever. There were a lot of days. Days
Towards the end, like
six,
going into that playoff.
yeah, 6 and 7 days, 5, 6 and 7. He had some ups and downs, but I thought it'd be a thing to hurt him because then you don't feel like, oh, here it comes, right at the wrong time kind of thing, which can get to all of us. But yeah, he was solid from start to finish. I thought Koping he got real good too there for a long time, and I was a little surprised Koping Chung having a few mistakes there at some crucial times. But I mean that's going to happen.
So you've seen SVB a lot, obviously, over the years in a couple different capacities, whether it's being the commentator or being Moscone Cup captain, and just kind of seeing where your guys at periodically throughout the year. Where would you gauge Shane at, let's say, on a percentage standpoint, where his peak is at and where he's at right now?
Well, I think I don't know what his schedule totally is like. I kind of feel like Shane talks about little breaks here and there, but he's not taking near as many breaks as he would probably want, maybe, or even lead on. Um,
Yeah.
I think he's pretty much almost 100% right now. I think he's going to gear up all the way until Saudi Arabia, in my opinion, anyways. And I don't think he's going to slow down much. Did I see he's doing some exhibition stuff overseas? Did I see that earlier? I thought maybe
Uh,
something
I think
with Efren. I think.
he. Oh, that's going to draw some attention then. No, I don't know if I saw that or not. I know he was going to like some VNEA thing before Saudi, and then he's going to go up there like prior to. And I'm guessing, just given the weight of that event, that he'll be out there way in advance to make sure. And if Efren's out there, I'm guessing there'll probably be some Reyes Cup announcement if Efren's going to be in Saudi. And I know you can't drop the news because you're not Pinozo or anything. We don't want you getting in any more trouble than than what he is. But yeah, it's pretty scary, man. If he's hitting that kind of gear, and I'll tell you, like I saw him for a few weeks out in Vegas, man. It was the wildest thing. Like after a long grind, and he was playing day in and day out. And don't get me wrong, there were plenty of days where he had, let's say, like an earlier day compared to most because he was winning so much. But I remember like after those events and the next day, it was like, man, we're finally done. I can finally breathe. I sleep in a little bit. And we show up to go break down the equipment there at Griff's, and Collins and myself were knocking them around on the TV table and playing some one pocket. And after maybe like about 30 minutes, I just started hearing this crack Jeremy, like just this crack of the balls over and over and over. And I look over, and there's Shane, and I get done. I go talk to him for a little bit, and I'm like, when are you leaving for Connecticut? And he says, "Oh, my flight's tonight, in a few hours." And there he was after a long grind, and he didn't stop, man. Like he didn't. It was just remarkable, and I mean, I want to say like in hindsight. I mean, I want to say now like, oh, it's no surprise he won, but it really still is because of the depth of the field, And you could have good work ethic, but like Shane just has this different gear, where he gets those crazy eyes, and when he starts getting those crazy eyes, and he's got that Starbucks in his system, and he's feeling good, and he's hitting on all cylinders. It's like the whole pool world better watch out, and even more so, like leading to Saudi, you start giving them more incentive to play, meaning a nice paycheck. You better watch out because that guy, when he's got a chip on his shoulder or some kind of extra fuel in that tank, he can be something else. What do you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like kind of like I guess Efren was the last 15, 20 years of his real playing career when the dollars got higher, the stakes got bigger for one reason or another. He seemed to sneak into that final somehow. But I don't think Shane will be sneaking in there. But Shane's just a creature of habit, and again, that's a common trait of a lot of the greats throughout sports. But um, I think he also, it used to be at least I did some tar matches, and back in the day I did a few, and whenever they had the tight table on there, I think that table played a little goofy anyways at times. The felt got kind of dried out at times, so I think it played a little funny for the guys, which I liked because it wasn't easy. But when they put the tight box on there, Shane really could easily lose his confidence at times, I think. I mean, I watched a few of those matches with the tighter top, and there wasn't many breaking runs, believe it or not. And I think that's one thing that's gotten him even more engaged back with playing great and wanting to play well, and almost something he can prove to himself every time when the equipment's tough. I think he really gets into it, which I think most of us do, but he's the best. So
Yeah, I it's kind of crazy because at 40 you're supposed to be like regressing, right? So like you introduce these tighter pockets, and he's still like just as dominating, if not more so than ever. And you mentioned how his confidence kind of shook a little bit then, but I don't see that now. Double J, I see all these new matchroom 4-inch pocket tournaments, and once he starts going into these, standard diamond type tournaments or 4.5-inch type tournaments, he's just he's just a monster, like bigger than ever before. Like it is kind of exhibition stuff, and it reminds me of seeing him going and playing on the bar table at times, because he's got that much confidence in putting that ball in the hole.
Well, he's probably, the greatest ever at focus, I think. Also, maybe that I've ever witnessed, anyways. I mean, I'd have to think about it. There are some great ones out there. Um, but I think also, he has a keen mind for focus, first off. Maybe not driving so much. I've driven with him at times.
Yeah,
His driving can be a
yeah.
little, especially if he's up
We've
there in
heard
the
some
hills
stories.
going to the lake. Yeah, driving a boat. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah. So,
I heard a
yeah.
story about him and his truck on the ice one time, and I don't know if that's the Republic, but I heard a pretty reliable source. He almost lost the truck one time.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. But we parked it on it. He parked it on a hill, and we're going to this little steak place on the way back from one of the lakes after fishing in this little town, and cool little town, by the way. And so he didn't put it in drive, So I hop out, he hop, and lucky enough, we had the boat trailer, so he parked ways away in this little downtown area, this old, and there was probably a car, I don't know, whole row of cars, I don't know, probably 30 feet, Dane, he I love him to death, but he can't hear me sometimes, so he gets out and the truck starts
Yeah,
moving. I'm
right.
screaming, Shane, Shane, I'm screaming. And he MacGyvered that truck. It was moving downhill and he hopped in. The door was open still. And he hopped in and got on that brake, and there was about a foot and a half before that boat was going to go into all them cars. So it was crazy.
Oh man, I got to remind me to ask him
Yeah,
about that story next time I talk to him on camera for
yeah.
sure. Um, do
Well,
you think?
but
Let
I
me
think
ask you
he's the
this because you
greatest
mentioned.
ever, probably in focusing. You know what I mean? Like, I think he understands how to keep himself focused as well, which is on that pool table.
Do you think he's like the modern day Efren, or you think he's like? And I mean, you've been around that generation where Efren was kind of peaking. And he would you put Shane in that same breath?
I've said this before already that tournament wise, I think you got to put Shane as the greatest of all time. Um, I mean, I couldn't speak back from eras a long, long time ago, that's for sure. But I mean, we play a lot of different disciplines over the last 20 years that he's played. I don't think he probably has uh, that straight pool, maybe, resume like some may have. I don't know. There's
Right,
not that many straight pool tournaments, but he's won a ton
like
of,
once a year,
ton of
maybe.
tournaments. Huh?
Like once a
What's
year,
that, Mike?
right?
Yeah, not that many, not that many. And I don't think that many that people would, besides the field themselves would say, oh, it's a world tournament or something, but I think he's probably the greatest of all time tournament wise. I don't see how anyone could say he's not.
Well, let's transition a little bit because for as great as he can be on the tournament side, he can be a little inconsistent when it comes to the Moscone Cup. And that's part of why I wanted to bring you on was not talk about Shane being inconsistent at the Moscone Cup, but just talk about the Moscone Cup in general. But on that note of SVB, what do you attribute that lack of success, that lack of domination that we've seen in other venues? Shane just not getting it done out there.
Yeah, for some reason the way he starts a lot of times dictates a lot of it. Which, if you look back, I mean, at people in general, the way they start up dictates a lot of what they do too. So, um,
Yep.
I'd probably pick out a few from last year that I think would go along those same lines. But uh, like for some reason, he just doesn't always have that focus in that he loses the focus a little bit. Um, he's wanting to pump off his own energy a little more, you know what I mean, than the team energy. And I'm not saying that's just fact, not right or wrong or
Yep.
whatever. It just seems like what it is.
It's fair.
And I think whenever that energy's low, he doesn't get to play that often, so he can't kick it right back in as well. Um, but also, I think practicing and hitting balls and him being able to do that through that, and maybe be able to hit enough balls to where you can forget about the mistake because you're eager. Well, I don't know about the regular term for you or anyone else, but most players that I've ever been around, if we're playing well, and we know we're playing well, a loss doesn't slow us down. I wouldn't say it's something that after getting back to the table where I think Shane, without hitting balls, he can worry about that mistake too much.
Do you feel like that dynamic of being on a team and depending on others is something that it ain't his thing. It's not his house.
I don't know if it's his first choice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's probably his first choice, but we have a lot of information to look at with Shane in the Moscone Cup, so we could probably safely say that's not his first choice. He'd rather be in a singles event, and he
Yeah.
also didn't grow up playing sports, probably, at the team level as much as some of us. Maybe I don't know, uh, but I mean, he's 40 years old, like you said, and he's got a chance to repair a lot of that. If people want to question his Moscone Cup record throughout the years, right? He's got a chance still to do a lot of good things with it.
Well, I mean, he doesn't seem to be slowing down any, and outside of Joey Ryan, everyone would still put him on the team. Year I
Well,
hate to
you
throw
read my
Joey under the
mind
bus
there.
since he ain't here right now. But let's talk about that for a second because and I'm not saying just Joey because it's a slow hanging fruit a little bit, but what do you would respond to those who say, hey, listen, he ain't getting it done, it's not his thing, we need to be looking elsewhere. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's really even a question mark at this moment. You know what I mean? If America at one point we could have interchanged some players. A lot of times when I played, there wasn't so much backlash. Of course, the internet wasn't quite as thriving as it is now with that kind of stuff. But
It's a little relentless these days.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And
Yeah,
well, everybody's on edge. Everybody's a little stressed
yeah.
out. It seems like, but
That's
well,
fair.
I mean, that's
It's
just the
fair.
way it is. I mean, you can stress out over a lot of stuff these days. Just go to the grocery
It's
store. I
sports
mean,
though,
it
right?
just
Double J. We see that like in everywhere. You look at baseball, football, basketball. Like when it's crunch time, right? When it's playoff time, every little maneuver, every reaction or the way that you're proactive, everything gets dissected. And I feel like the Moscone Cup is that one time where you get like a few days of pool not being in the Stone Ages when it like versus other sports, right? Because it's very much so picked apart every single little thing. And I mean, part of it's the race, part of it's the format, and part of it is listen. You expect your heroes wear capes, right? You expect them to fly, and so when they don't, over and over again, you get a little. You start getting those boos from the hometown. Sometimes you mentioned Philly. Philly's known for that. You look at any game in Philly when whether it's the Eagles or whoever, if they ain't doing good, those fans let you know.
yeah, I know. But I mean, I'd rather have that than a bunch of fans just sit down and personally. But I think Shane's got to be on the team for sure. I mean, he's too much of a plus when things are going well, which is what any team needs to win. And I think he's going to change in that regard as well. I think he's going to become better. Maybe he won't become the best teammate ever. Who knows? I mean, I don't think that's him, but but if he does his job, there's no complaints on from America. I don't think, anyways.
Do you think he can change now? I mean, listen, I know I'm 37, right? I know I get more stubborn as I get older, right? I get more stuck in my ways as I get older, right? Do you think honestly that him being over 40, you think he's got the ability to still evolve and shift when it comes to whatever he needs to be when it comes to being on a in that team?
Change might be a little strong. Improve, maybe a better word. Um,
I like it. Okay, I
well, I
can
mean,
buy I can buy improve. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the reason being is it's all about your character, and if I mean the Moscone's incredible, but Matchroom wouldn't tell you, hey, go live your life around those 4 days. They wouldn't, even as credible as it is. So he's got to worry about 300 some odd days besides that. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it still requires maximum effort, and it deserves maximum effort. But
Right.
uh, I think as a former captain, and I think any future captain or anyone that was on a team with you, if they just saw improvements in those areas, it would probably go leaps and bounds.
What was it that worked when it comes, or was it the same, Shane? Those years where you were vice captain and you guys got a couple of wins under your belt, in the Moscow after a long, long drought.
Yeah, I mean, I think those 2 years we got to travel a lot together. We got to spend a ton of time together as a team. Um, Shane did pretty much the same kind of thing practice wise, but I think Shane just felt it was more of a easier atmosphere to almost give in a little bit. Meaning like that. Those 2 years is the most I've ever talked to Shane up into that date. I've known him for a long time, played in many matches and whatnot, and hung out, whatever. But I think he became more settled with the guys he was around because he was around them for so long, and it was just easier though in the playing days whenever with that group of guys, just because of all the time we spent together.
Is it comfortable or is it having trust in those guys that are out there with you?
Say it again.
Was it him just being comfortable or was it him having more trust with those guys that he was out there with, in your opinion?
I think it was comfort, but also I think that he saw improvements in this. You know what I mean? Like they were. Um, Skylar Woodward able to Mr. Moscone for America as much as he started right here in 18 and 19, and then from then on has played really well. So I think if you just look at Shane, I think there's a lot of guys that you could say really had um, a lot of big bonuses from those 2 years of being together and traveling together, playing the Dream Cup there in Russia, playing the thing in Europe over there in the Netherlands. We played
Yeah.
the Euro Tour and just getting to hang out and it's kind of like this when you hang out that much. It's different whenever you go to like a Moscone Cup and you're not hanging out the whole year like that or really spend a lot of time. You try to make sure there's no mistakes or no goof ups or look silly or embarrassing, however you want to talk about it. Whereas if you spend the whole year together,
Yeah.
boy, you're hoping there's some of that stuff, and when there is, it makes everything better, because we see we're all a little more human without us seeing it or having to talk about it so much.
So
You
let's talk
just
about
become
this past.
closer. That's all.
Yeah, and I listen. I think from the outside looking in, you've seen that on a number of different levels with Shane. Whether it's and you can insert a few, not a lot of players, but a few players where there's a there when you're out, when you're competing with someone, because you know who your guy is to your right. And I think as others, like a Sky has kind of evolved into being dependable and Mr. Moscone, so to speak, then hey, listen, I can breathe a little deeper now because I'm not on edge. I'm not on ice every single little thing. The weight of the world ain't necessarily on his back. And I've said it a few times. I thought that's when Shane can be his most deadly because maybe he did put too much pressure on himself during points where he had to live up to that Captain America. He had to be the hope, right? And he was the only hope for maybe a few years. So, but this past Double J better came out going to be joining y'all for the team, right? Sky being dependable. You picked, I think, Tyler and Wolford, and we talked to you afterwards. And tell me some of the things you thought went well for this past year's Moscone Cup. Tell me some things that didn't work out in this past year's Moscone Cup.
Uh, well, I mean, I think day one could have been much different. We all know that. It was a little upsetting the way day one ended. I thought was the most upsetting of anything. Just the doubles kind of connection kind of got lost in Tyler and Shane there. Shane was not a happy kid at that moment, to say the least, and just got disengaged a little bit in that match. I thought it was kind of important, win or lose, to stay very engaged with that, but it didn't happen. So that was pretty disappointing. But um, I thought Federer played better and better. I was a little surprised at some of the little mistakes, but that is the Moscone Cup. Shane Wolford was awesome. The one thing that I think Shane's got to keep working at, if you remember about his Moscone Cup, it was I don't know what the highlight reel was, but he needs to stick on it and start to play real solid, more solid, you would say, rather than having to escape at times. That. So I'm just thinking about good things that happened last year, of course, with Wolford making all those shots and whatnot. Um, but then also looking forward to saying, hey, we got to improve a lot and play a little more solid pool. Um, you know, for my taste, I guess it was a little different. I'm a pretty serious competitor out there, So once the score line got a little sideways, I still thought we could come back, even though that's just the way I feel and always think. Where maybe, it was kind of like uh, the
You
ball
feel
got
like anybody
rolling.
checked out?
I wouldn't say checked out. It's just the mood changed. It didn't. The mood changed into almost like a little bit of a funny kind of thing, like when are we going to win another point kind of deal, versus hey, let's
Yeah.
go win this game, this match, this point, this game, this match, this point, and so on and so forth.
There was a few moments, and it seems to have happened regularly where you've seen young guys kind of, go as Shane goes. And I don't want to keep on harping on it, but did you feel like, you lost him early on in that Moscone Cup, or at what point, if any, did you feel like maybe you lost them from being engaged and competitive and having that same spirit to fight?
Yeah, I mean, after night one, I went to his room, knocked on the door, and of course went in and talked to him for a little bit, and said, just basically, in so many words, said that no matter what happens out here, we need you at all times. So we had a
Right.
talk, and that's what we can do is talk, right? And everything seemed good at that time, but then once the ball got
Did you
rolling at
feel like you
times,
got through? Like, 'cause you can
well, I
tell the
felt like
difference if someone's, telling you what you
yeah,
want to hear versus like it it registering.
yeah. I mean, Shane he didn't want to hold 10 paragraphs at that moment, but I mean, I was pretty to the point.
I like that. I like that.
You know,
Yeah.
he wouldn't want to hear all, but
I
first
can
off was making
appreciate that,
sure.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's important that you do say stuff and you get some acknowledgement. But I think I did get through. But I like Moscone, and I think it'll change. It will, but I think he can lose his fire pretty quickly at times. But it's a touchy role
What
that
needs
you
to
got to be out there for four other guys too. So
Yeah. And I listen, I mean, we've talked with Shane enough to know and to hear, verbatim is, it's not necessarily his favorite atmosphere, so to speak, and he's so used to being reliable on his own 2 feet, and he's been that way his whole life, and I can understand that. And even if you don't have that, you know, captain or vice captain title, he's still a leader, and he always will be. It doesn't matter what group. I mean, you can put him on Team Europe, and to some extent, he'll be a leader of that team. Just because of his body language. Now, I'm sure maybe he may be a little differently in just the way he acts, but that just comes with the territory of being one of the greatest of all times, right? People are always gonna look at you that way.
well, yeah, as they should. I mean, for the most part, I mean, any American fan that has tuned into the Moscone since Shane's been playing the Moscone, which is I don't know, a long time. I think 2007 was his first one. I think maybe six. Um, is they're going to label him as America's leader. I mean, a
Yeah.
big percentage of no matter who's on the team, really, to be honest with you, or who's the captain, or anything like that. They're going to look at SVB as if we're to win, he would probably get a lot of that big credit. You know what I'm saying? Even when Sky won those MVPs, SVB was very talked about in those Moscones. So you know,
Well, you've seen the evolution of Sky. You mentioned, the captaincy. Obviously, whenever we had you on post Moscone Cup, you had a feeling that you weren't going to be back as the captain of Team USA. It's been announced this past week. Sky's coming on as the captain. Give me the first thing. Let's start off with this. Give me the first thing you told Sky after you found out.
well, I kind of heard a little bit about it that it might happen with a playing captain, um, but then I just basically, I texted him. He had been home when the news came out, and I congratulated him. Um, of course, anything he needs, any help he wants, and if I can make make cheeseburgers for the guys, whatever, that's fine. Uh, but no, seriously, it's good news for Team America. Um, I think it's going to be something that the Skylar's got to wrap his head around for 2024, not just because of the Moscone, just because of his own personal goals as well. And then again, he's got to spend more time thinking about others as well, which he's that kind of guy, anyways.
It's me and Joey had this debate the other day, and he thought, listen, how much is all that extra energy and attention that Sky's going to have to give to scoreboard watching and seeing guys play and just maybe all the politicking that may happen or the butter, like how much is that going to weigh on him? And do you think that his game will well, where do you think his game will be at when the year's done, just given that new level of responsibility? You still there, Double J? I think Amy might have cut off the Wi-Fi. Everybody, All right, let me see if I can hit him up and see if I can get him to refresh. I'm gonna send you in, and let's see if we can go from there. Jay, if you can hear me, try me, and then we'll bring you back in. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we'll bring him back. Just it's always great having Double J on because he kind of he not kind of he tells it like it is, and every answer that he gives is very thought through. Let me bring him on in here. Can you still hear me?
I can.
All right, good deal. I can hear you, buddy. I don't know how much of that question you caught. I don't even remember the question now that I uh,
You were talking
thought
about
about it. But
Skylar and his how it'll affect
oh,
his
yeah,
year
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
How do you think his game's going to be like, just given that new level of responsibility?
I think it's going to probably be better than ever. Now
Really?
he's got a yeah, yeah, I really do. I think he's going to take it as a great responsibility. I think he's going to take it as um, the easiest way for him to lead right now is playing his best pool and putting in the time to do it. I think that's the real leader. That's the biggest advantage of the playing captain. I think throughout the year is the players getting to watch him perform well, and of course it'd be great for him as a captain to be able to make it off points. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lead by example, and because he has been so dependable and reliable and clutch in that atmosphere, I think it opens the door it to be as natural selection, as you can think of all considered, but we've heard from former players. Mike talked to a couple, and I saw a couple in the chat when we had Sky and Jason on who thought, it wasn't necessarily the best idea, that it's just too much to handle. And maybe you can kind of give some insight to, how consuming is that position? Like, is it how much more than just filling up a lineup card? And how tough is that job, man?
Well, it's a tough job. It's stressful. Um, think about a lot, anyways. Just because I think about pool, and you don't want to be missing out on someone you should be thinking about. And it's still hard to be able to watch every match and clock people how they're playing. Um, the good thing is scores help you, of course, but scores aren't really what I feel is going to be the determining factor besides points at times. But uh, yeah, I mean it's a demanding job, but I think like I said, going throughout the year, I think it's going to really help Skyler with his pool game. I really do. Now, I think also I think the players will respect that he's still playing. He's a player, not just a captain that's on the sidelines and doesn't really have any responsibility on the table. So I think the players are going to be great with him as well. Now, the one thing for Skyler that we all hope that he has more of a problem with is more Americans coming trying to make that team. So he's got to be pretty mindful and maybe have a few helping hands as far as some eyes seeing things and talking about things.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Outside of, let's say, the five guys that you picked for the team last year, how many more guys, and maybe you can name some names, would be consideration 4 months into the year now?
4 months, well, 4 months hasn't told us a whole lot about World Nine Bowl Tour rankings. It's told us some, but
Right.
um, I mean, I think you got to look at. I don't know how much Lucas is going to be playing in the bigger events. I certainly hope that the people in the Northeast that support him so much realize that the action and the challenge matches are great, but that kid needs to be out there at all those big events. So try and make that popped up there. BJ Ussery, who's going to be playing a lot, he has made some noise last year. Reinhold, I think, is going to be a guy that could surprise you. Chris has still got to evolve, to the next level of some tactical things and decision making. But he's, I think, the best he's ever played.
Seem to be chopping up just a little bit
I
on
think
the connection,
there's,
Double J. But can,
Sam Henderson's a really good one. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. Maybe if you can try refreshing just one more time for me, and see if we can kind of just clean that up just a little bit. It just seems to be just a little bit choppy. Bringing up some great names, Eric Roberts. I love that kid's game. He's really good, man. I've seen him perform on. Always done real. It's. I think a lot of it's. I think part of it is getting support and being able to travel. Let me see if I can bring in Double J. Can you hear me, Jeremy?
Yes, I can.
Good deal. Good deal. A name that got brought up in the chat, Sam Henderson. You've seen him a lot. He's a part of that Q-Tech camp. Evolve over the last 18 months or so, year. Give me your thoughts about that kid and where his game is at and where you think it can be.
Well, he's got a real powerful game. I watched him play a bit more in Boston. Um, he's got a lot of great tools. I think just like any young player, he's got some things to learn decision wise, but just like they pick up anything, he'll pick up that kind of stuff quick, and they're all going to get better at it and faster, getting better if they can still get out there and play a lot of those big events. Which I think Sam, I kind of saw his schedule online, and I think he does have quite a few big events listed. But yeah, I mean, again, the best thing these American players can do, any of them that aren't in those big events, is do what you can to get there. But I mean, there's
Give me
got to be some other young ones as well.
give me some insight on Sky's opinion on rankings and selection of players. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember when we talked last year, you mentioned that he had a pretty high opinion on follow the rankings. Putting a lot of emphasis and weight when it comes to wild card selections on rankings. Am I wrong?
Uh, no, I wouldn't say you're wrong at all. I think it was it was a big subject last year as well, right? Because Federer and some things that
Right.
evolved there, and so Federer being so highly ranked once he became an American player, it kind of basically took one of those spots away for points, and essentially will take a spot away in some players' eyes for the team. And but I think he'll key on that as well. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's good to go win a smaller ranking event, and that's where you got to start sometimes. But besides getting to watch every one of those balls being shot in by whatever player it is, uh, the real information feedback you're going to get is those guys playing those top players all the time. That's the one that's going to give you the real feedback. So I think Skyler will key on some of that. He'll key on rankings for sure. But also, I mean, that's why I say he's got to have some good eyes on some players and see how they're playing. Because like Shane, for instance, Wolford, he lost. When you look at it last year, of course, Americans were limited on success at times. But what did he do? Was it final 16 at the UK Open? Is that right?
It sounds about right.
I
Yep.
think I think that's what it was.
He
But
had a couple pretty solid wins throughout the year, if I remember, like against Cole, amongst others, if I
yeah,
remember
no, he
right.
did, and but that's what I was going to get at. Even as losses, I was fortunate enough to be able to go watch matches of Shane's. Now I wouldn't sit there right on him. Just I don't know if that's right or wrong to really be sweating him right over his shoulder like that. Any player, um, but I got to see him really battle hard in losses as well. So that's going to be, I think, something that's important for as he can. And not only that, I mean, you just think about Skyler, and we always talk about Skyler, and I mean, it's almost always positive stuff. One thing that we'd all love to see him do more is maybe compete a little more. Maybe, as a captain, maybe practice a little more. So, uh,
Yeah.
but the thing is that now he's got this. Now, of course, they have some family things happening this year that's great. But I think it's going to do
It ain't
wonders
just
for
some
Skyler.
things. You're gonna be adding another another baby out there, which
Yeah, another
takes
team
a lot
member
of
for him.
time, a lot of. He seems to be very and yeah, another team member, right? He seems to be a very involved dad, which is awesome. I love that. Family is so important, and but you mentioned the work ethic a little bit, and I saw that at times. Double J being out there, with you guys out in Dallas, where you walk into the pool room, players are already there, some are hitting balls. Scott was the one you had to corral a little bit here and there, make sure, hey, let's get to practicing, let's get to focusing. How do you feel like that's gonna be work so well when it comes to being in that leadership position and being a piece of that puzzle of what guys need to do in order to be more competitive for starters?
Well, yeah, I mean, it starts with him as far as him making sure his own game and what he's working on there. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Mike, and but I think if it was just for Skyler, maybe you could question some at times. But I think that the leadership role, he's not going to want to let anyone down, and so he's got to make sure that he doesn't
Sure.
doesn't overdo it. Doesn't overdo it at all. But I think he'll have you know plenty of thought going into this. I think he'll have all his I's dotted and his T's crossed, and he's going to do the best freaking job he can do.
I agree with you, and one of the reasons why I think so is because he's got a good finger on the pulse. He knows when to be a little more serious and buckle down. He knows when to be a little more, when the moment deserves a little bit of a tension breaker, so to speak. You know, that'll serve him so well when it comes to dealing with so many different personalities. Because you'll just be able to have guys um, who want to work that much harder for you when you know the steps that I'm going through. You know what it takes, and he's such a natural talent, and I think that um, you know he grows into this position. He'll just get better at knowing when to put his foot on the gas a little bit, and maybe when to ease up on the gas a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one thing about Skyler that a lot of people don't know, I mean, he pays attention. I mean, that guy, he's like a hawk or so. I don't know, like in the pool room even, he
I've
just
heard
picks up
that,
on.
man. I've heard he's of the game, and a real historian of pool in general. I've heard that from a few people.
Well, yeah, and he just pays attention to everything. It seems like, anyways, and he always knows what you're talking about, or he's got a pretty accurate response. I think he's got to think about five different guys now, or four other different guys that may be a little bit different personality, but they all know each other so well. I think if someone else makes the team, which I think there is a chance of that, by the way, um, I think he'll have maybe look into that a little bit more and see what kind of personality that person is. But I think overall he'll find job.
If a rookie were to join the USA, that it would make Sky's job easier or tougher?
Well, it wouldn't be easier, that's for sure. I mean, any rookie, I mean, you have to think of some things, or in a short period of time, you have to say little subtle things that make them feel right, which was Skylar's real hip on picking up on people's personalities and again, when to say something and when not to say something. Um, I don't know if it'll be a rookie. Could be a rookie. I think Billy Thorpe is playing as maybe some of his best pool ever at the moment. I think he wants to prove to himself more than anyone else about getting back on that team. So I think that the team could change come December.
He seems a lot more and driven. I'll say that Billy. Whenever I've seen him out there, seems to have, and he's got his eye on the prize. And it seems like his cue ball has gotten better, and he's and I really want to see that. I want to see guys uncomfortable, man. I want to see guys knowing that's not secure. I want to see guys knowing that, hey, there's a coming for you or coming for your place. and the Americans need some of that. Don't get me wrong. I feel like there's there, like, everyone expects Sky to be out there for the three, but for those two spots, they got it, that they got it made, and if there isn't some fresh blood or maybe some research who have been there before who are up in their game, then you got to do whatever you can, and I'm hoping that we get to see that of just players that stay on their heels the entire year and stay motivated.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get down on yourself, but also at the same time, like for a guy like Billy, for instance, there's nothing better ever for him to be able to look at a schedule of events now, and because Billy, one thing about Billy that would get him is, man, he really hates to lose. I mean, we all hate to lose, but Billy can get torn up over a loss, whether it be he played great and got
Yeah.
unlucky, or just got outplayed a hair at the end, or just didn't play his best match. Whatever it is, he can beat himself up a little bit. I hope he sits back, and I think this is what's happening when Billy's maturing and starting to break down a little more, maybe just because spending more time on the table.
Let me ask you your opinion on this because as the captain, you took some abuse online in so many words. Jeremy, when things went wrong, your decision making, lineups, whatever, was really picked apart, and maybe it was unfair because of the way players were performing or things that they were doing off table that you just can't have any control over, right? But like you were kind of that buffer and the event. You know what I mean? Like for better or worse, right? Was separated or like Sky not having a buffer now because he's that guy now. You know what I mean? He's the player and he's the captain. Do you feel like it would be a plus or a minus for him being out there?
Um, I don't think it'll be much bother. Um, I think if you look at it on the plus side of things, it would have to be like, yeah, things are going well, or if there's hardly any negative comments, which is rare anyways, no matter what the situation is. Um, yeah, I think if you get
Social
involved
media,
in that,
buddy.
yeah, if you get involved in that too much, you're looking for it to be negative. Then, I mean, meaning like,
Yeah.
your odds are it's going to end up hurting more than helping, is what my point is. But
Right.
um,
Yeah.
even though you could go into it with the greatest mind ever, but if you get knee deep into that kind of stuff, it's not gonna help you overall. It's not gonna weigh in any decisions. You know, I can sit back and look back without someone reminding me on the internet. That I think there's one big mistake I made, not big mistake, but mistake I made one of the years with the lineup that I could have done something different. I was pretty happy otherwise with the lineups I always put up. Um, my point is, I don't need anyone on the internet to tell me that. If I
Yeah.
do, it's not going to help the situation.
I got you, man. But that's kind of my point, though, right? Because it's like the guy to be the one to like get the blame, so to speak, at times. Like I said, whether or not it's fair or not, you know what I mean? And because you're not putting the queue together, right? But I can see it maybe being a little tough, and I know if anyone can handle it, it's that guy because whether the one thing I love about Sky, or one of many things I love about him, is that when you look at him, he's gonna have the same disposition more whether he's up 4-1 or he's down 4-1. Like his go and shift the whole lot. He's always real easy going. He's always got a smile. He can make the best of some tough situations. And I can literally count like times in one of them world where you saw his face and I was like, man, that don't look like the Sky that I've seen. You know what I mean? But for the most part, it's just he handles moments. Maybe that's a part of the reason why he's had the success that he's had. Give me in a few words or less what's going to make Sky Woodward a winning captain for team.
I think just the role itself. Like I said, I think the role getting this is perfect timing for Skylar to push on and improve in his career and go even further with his career personally and as actually as a captain as well. Um, I think his counterpart is the same. I think Jason's still a young man and still got plenty of game, and I think it's going to bode well for him. Also, I think he played somewhat like a captain last year, anyways. Jason did. But yeah, Skylar, I think it's going to do wonders for him. It may be a little taxing at times, um, but I mean, I think we all want Skylar to take charge. Maybe we weren't thinking it was the captaincy role as much as playing, but just take charge and hopefully he runs with it.
You could feel it in the room. I could feel it in the room. You can see it in the room. You know, whether it was like official or not. Some guys just are born leaders, whether or not they got a official title or they don't. You know, and he's one of those guys who is very much a leader, and I think he will do well, and I'm hopeful he will. And I know fans of Team USA. Um, Looking back at your captaincy over the years, Double J, you got any regrets at all?
Uh, like I said, I could have played a different match. I think it was on day 3 2 years ago, um, where I could have evaluated a little better, but you know, I
See,
went with I
that's
went with
what lets
Earl and
me know how much you wanted it. Because you remember something 2 years ago on day number 3. You know what I mean? I can't tell you
yeah.
what I had for dinner last night, but this is the thing about how this is what know how much you wanted it. You know,
Yeah, and maybe I sure wanted to shoot that shot, that 6 ball against David, just to
I
see
didn't want
how
to
I
bring
would
it
have
up,
done with
man.
it. Just
I didn't want to.
yeah,
I
right.
didn't want to bring up. I didn't want to bring up old stuff. You know.
Well, I was actually finally getting in a zone there to where I never really saw fans that I never looked at fans that much, you know what I mean, and stuff when I played, and I kept to myself pretty well, talking to myself and whatnot, and I remember trying to finally during that match getting back to my old self. My younger brother, he'd watch me some, and he'd say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're talking to all these people. You're doing this. You're doing. What are you doing? Like that's not you." And I was finally starting to get into that playing mode and still playing pretty well overall, to be fair. And um, I just wish I would have looked at the monitor or Skylar or somebody doing whenever I started to go walk off and clean my cue, or else maybe that cup would have turned out different.
Well, you've had pretty good success, recent success out there at the Moscone Cup. You ever think about giving it a run?
Oh, I'd love to. I always talk about my jobs. I love my teaching the most. I think the commentary's awesome as well. Love it a lot to be around the players. But I still always say it. I sure still wish I was playing though. So, but it would take a pretty committed schedule to do that, and um, I'd love to do that. Don't get me wrong, but you know how it is. We got family and kids and commitments, and the pool's in a great spot with me just sitting on the sidelines talking about it.
Give me your thoughts on the Moscone Cup.
I think it's great. I think Florida's a great destination, anyways. I think everyone's going to love it. Um, I thought it was a huge move to be out of a casino. Nothing against casinos, but I think if this sport's going to move on and do the things it wants to do, I think it's got to be not always a casino-based kind of situation. Um, I think it opens the doors for a lot more kids and maybe a friendly kind of children's setup for maybe at the Moscone or some other events in the future. But yeah, I think it's incredible. I don't know how long the deal is, or not that much about it, to be honest with you. But I sure am happy it's somewhere else, just for change.
I was hearing from Mike that the players and from the video we seen that they have the ability to get a vice captain. If Sky reached out and asked for your help in that regard, would that be something you'd be open to?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd help them any way possible. Just like those 2 years I did that in 18 and 19. Um, whatever's needed to try and get that W.
You think Team USA can win the Moscone Cup?
Absolutely. I mean, last year sucked. I ain't gonna lie, but
Yeah.
but I mean, the 2 years prior to that, I mean, if you don't think we could have won it, I don't think you know a whole lot about pool. I mean, we're right there in was it Bally's? Was it? I think it just changed to the Horseshoe, but we're right there to
Yeah.
be at 8-8, and really, to be honest with you, had three
Should
or
have been
four
up.
matches. What's that?
Should have been up after that match too, when it was 8-8, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it
That
was
was
going to be 8-8.
the
Yeah,
extension. Oh yeah,
yeah,
okay. That's
exactly. Yeah, with
what it was.
Skylar, and but I mean,
Right.
we were up three matches or four matches, like 3-0, 3-1, 3-0, and a couple of them, and 3-1 and two of them, and then to where you could say the same about Europe, but that wasn't really the case. They weren't in position to win matches when they didn't. They won the matches that they were in position to win, and the same thing happened the prior year. What would that have been? 21, where we had a chance to go up like 6-2 or 7-2 or 6-3 in day two, and a couple little things slipped away. I think it was me and Reinhold that missed that doubles match to go up. We still took a lead, but we could have been up 6-3 there. And then I think Shane got beat in day two. He was up 3-1 and 3-0, I believe it was, and lost both those matches. And those kind of things happen, of course. But I think we've had a couple positions now. The first year, the COVID year, and my last year, those things got a little sideways.
I was like, I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong, and then before you know it, it's just the wheels came off. It happens in sports
Yeah,
sometimes. You can,
you
I
could.
mean, you can look at it like an NBA. You can have the team lose by 25, and then might go up there and 15 points. That's just, and unfortunately, Team USA, if you're a fan of them, was just on the receiving end of it this past year. I'll get you out of here on
Yeah, but
this,
I
Jay.
think go ahead.
Um, no. What were you going to say?
I think one regret I might have is figuring out a little better way to positive and under more dire straight situations. Kind of like like I think last year in sports is when on it you can really start. I think a couple times a few things got a little bit like, oh, it just ain't our year, instead of just kind of like moving on through it and trying to win. So
I appreciate the honesty in that aspect. 'Cause I know that's not easy. But let me ask you this, and then, like I said, I'll get you out of here. What did it mean to you to be the captain of Team USA all those years?
well, everything. I mean, of course, would have loved to have had a W, but there's always a winner and there's always a loser in that thing. And I was fortunate enough to play on a lot of winning teams. Um, it was something special to be able to step in, even though it was unfortunate for Earl that year, and get to play, get my feet wet again, and get real sweaty doing it. Uh, but yeah, it was incredible. I mean, people always ask me about one of the biggest things in my career, and I won some big tournaments. Played real well doing it a couple of times that I was real proud of. But I think the team sports is the one I'm most proud of, and being able to lead those guys and see them fight is right up there.
Dermot, as always, man, you've been a great friend of the show, and I appreciate you for letting us in. And we said this plenty of times, last year, and always willing to come on and talk shop and just be honest, man. And I know it's not easy, but you are the consummate professional, man, and I got the world of respect for you. So,
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, Mike.
um,
And next time I want Joey on there though, because every time Joey's on there, I'm watching and he's saying this crazy stuff, and I don't want to be a type. I don't want to type and be misconstrued, So, but
no. Hey, listen, we'll reschedule it with Joey on. Hey, how about, are you going to be in Buffalo's this year by chance?
I don't know. I'm waiting on some news about that. I might be going to Saudi a little early. I don't know yet. So we'll see. I told Ray the other day that I do want to play, and I'm trying to make it work, but we'll see what happens. So,
Well, either
but
way,
I should know something in the next few days.
We'll get Red on. I think I was talking to make it out there as well. So I'd love to talk more with you. Love to get your reaction to Joey saying all the crazy stuff that he says on here, including that SVP should be on the team. So we'll get more reaction from you. Jeremy, I appreciate you making time for us this late, especially on Easter Sunday. But I hope you and the wife have a great rest of the week. And thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Everyone have a great Easter. I know it's almost over, but and keep doing what you do in the pool world.